Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, we hit the home stretch of spring camp with the Red-Black game less than a week away, and a Red Raider is $2 million richer. That's always good news. We're into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs is helping you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to see you again, kicking off a brand new week. The home stretch of spring camp is finally upon us. The spring game, Red-Black game, just around the corner from the Petroplex. And we actually had spring scrimmage number 2 going down over the weekend. We'll spend some time diving into that. Want to get to some of the latest from the trenches, where some of the more interesting competitions and conversations are obviously playing out during this camp. But first, let's just take a listen to head coach Joey McGuire following spring scrimmage number 2.
How's it going, Red Raiders? Great day today. We were able to get in to Jones AT&T. As you could see, felt like it was a really good scrimmage, really physical. Our last Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday have probably been some of the more physical days that we've ever had. Was excited about that. Had a couple of safeties that had interceptions today, CJ and Plunk. And then Josh Kelly had a big touchdown. Coy Aiken had a big touchdown. I thought it was a really good day. We're getting better and better.
Like to hear about that, Chris. Violence, physicality, and some playmaking from some pass catchers, right? That's a couple of things I think that's just what the doctor is ordering this year.
And I was glad to see them in the stadium, because I think Joey said after that was the first time that they'd been in there all spring. And
that's right.
Yeah, you get a glimpse as he kind of does the twirl there with the phone on how massive that is. Yep. So that's obviously a fun deal. But then, yeah, you want, a lot of times, I think that is the case this year too, or was the case. But most of the time with spring football, like you could even say that the real scrimmage or the real red and black game, or the one that they are really, I don't know how you want to term that, but there's more to it on this one that he's just now talking about compared to the one that will be in Midland, when they don't want to show a whole lot. They're not gonna get into too much scheme just because TV cameras are on and all those kinds of things. I think most programs operate this way, and so this one would have been more of the real deal, if you will. And it's good to hear that you got guys on both sides of the ball making big plays.
Yeah, no question. And that's kind of one thing that we haven't really talked about all that much through spring camp. We've talked a ton about some of the trench work, the competitions you got going on both sides of the ball, obviously there. But I guess I've been a little hesitant to get to some of those, pass catchers and some of those newcomers and returners. I mean, you and I talked about this off the air last week. Do we sometimes spend too much time? This could be a basketball or football conversation, but I think especially for the sake of this football conversation, do we spend too much time, really zeroing in on the newcomers or guys that are joining the program, and we kind of gloss over some of those returners? And, when you add to the mix Baron Morton being sidelined during spring camp, it's left me a little hesitant to really, fully embrace or dive into some of the high hopes for what your passing game or how explosive your offense could be in 2024. But we continue to hear, not only as you just heard there from Coach McGuire, about some of those pass catchers making plays. We talked about John Carlos Miller, and we were talking about tight ends, so it's not just wide receivers. Talked about that group last week, but he mentions a newcomer and a returner, and Josh Kelly and Coy Aiken right there. And obviously, even though we're not talking about it all that much this offseason, that's going to be one of the position groups that's most anticipated, I think, by Tech fans to see take the field this fall.
Yeah, I think, and you may not even have, I don't know if he's going to end up being the best, but he's going to be in that conversation, but you don't even have what could be the best even out there in Micah Hudson yet, but like the Josh Kelly, I think, addition is going to prove to be one of the better ones that you have on the team, in my opinion, just because I think that's why the portal is so intriguing to coaches. And again, it can be square peg, round hole at times, but he's a proven commodity at the Power 5 level. He's got relationships with people here, and by all accounts, he's just been, a very, very polished, like, gosh, this is the kind of guy we were missing type of player. Again, it's you're in April here, and you really need this in September, specifically when you go to where Josh Kelly used to play college football. That's when that's when you'll kind of really start to lean on him. But we've said this for 3 to 5 years or whatever it's been. It makes it difficult on the play caller, the QB, and really the O-line too. Okay, the O-line gets a lot of grief, but you just haven't had a lot of guys that can make something out of nothing. And it makes it difficult on everybody whenever you just don't have some of that mixed in, and you're having to drive 12 to 14 plays every drive, and you're having to call the perfect play, and you have to avoid a holding penalty or a tipped pass that gets picked off, all that stuff. Because if you got a dude that can make a couple of guys miss and then, goodbye, which is what we saw in the replay that they sent out of Josh Kelly over the weekend, it solves a lot of problems. It increases your margin for error. And I think Caleb Douglas is also very similar. And I think we all know Micah Hudson's going to be that guy.
Yeah, and as you look at the offensive side of the football, look, how we feel about this. It's not going to work out unless you've got things happening positively up front along the offensive line. But putting that aside for a second, if that's even possible, when you think about your pass catchers, you think about your tight ends, you think about your running back, and hopefully soon to become group of running backs that we can also be excited about. There's a lot to be excited about. I don't know how you could consider any of it not as markedly improved, or at least with the opportunity to be that way, right?
Yes, and I think, the portal window opens up, I think it's on Wednesday, I think it's right. Or maybe it's tomorrow. Yeah, portal window opens up, and I that position's not going to shock me, because you hear the way Joey talks about Cam Dickey. We've tried to talk about him initially here. Yep. Taj Brooks is the guy, but when I hear the head coach talking about a brand new freshman in here, like the way that he is, and you've got, I don't know how many like sandwiched in between, so Bryson Donnell, Anquan Willis, and Cameron Valdez. And I would not think that Cameron Valdez would enter the portal. But I mean, like, when you start hearing about Cam Dickey, anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. So we'll kind of see how that plays out, because that's the one position where there's a lot of bodies, and they'll all tell you and have told you, you need 3, but do you need 5 or 6? And you got a signee on the way, so. But that, that running back position, I think Taj Brooks is he's got that locked down. It's just a matter of finding that that depth piece behind him, and maybe it's a guy that was here, maybe it's a new guy, maybe it's both of them. I don't want to rule out Bryson Donnell and Anquan Willis, but we just haven't heard a lot about them. Nobody's really mentioned them in the ways that they've talked about, like Dickey specifically. So anyway, just I think that's curious.
Yeah, and I want to get to those big boys that will be in front of those guys trying to clear some paths, and obviously what's happening on the other side of the football as well with the defensive line, and what seems to be some encouraging signs as it relates maybe to some depth you're establishing there for 2024. We'll get to that in just a second. But man, I don't know if you've had a chance to be down on the field at the Jones yet, have you? Because every time I'm looking at either the video of Coach McGuire from field level, or you see some of the pictures of the guys from field level, and you see the towering south end zone. I mean, it is going to add a totally different dynamic, which is breaking news. Hello, did you know a huge building in one end of your field is going to add a different dynamic? I know that I'm not telling anybody anything they don't already know, but I'm blown away every time I see somebody on the field or a view from field level and how it kind of compares to what's going to happen there. Because, pardon me, for my entire life, it's looked one way, and it is nothing like it is going to look whenever you kick things off in the fall this time around.
I have been down there before, and it is. I don't think that I'm always like, the older you get, the more you like, like when the Coliseum went away, or when when they took years ago when they took like the bubble down, over there, that one indoor that we were used to seeing. There's just some things that it changes the sight line, or like you're so used to this structure being there, like coming off down Marcia Sharp, or you're driving down, University, or whatever you're doing when you're around campus. But it can be in anything, in any walk of life. When a building goes away, or a structure goes away, or one gets added, you're like, man, it totally changes the dynamic of
Right.
the way I can see things, right? And I don't think people will really grasp how massive and how much this will change the dynamic of the way that the stadium feels until you get inside of it. Because that is, and I think that it's going to actually like seal it up to where, it'll affect the wind or lack thereof. I think it'll affect the way maybe the kicking game is played, but also think the way that the sound stays in there could be really impacted. And man, I think when you have somebody like what Dusty and what Cody and all the folks that have been a part of this project, those guys are two regents and heavily involved in this project. It is just so impressive that you've got guys like Joey will say, I think he said it after the scrimmage on Saturday, you got people that are willing to put money where their mouth is. They want to be good. And I think Joey even said it. We don't have any excuses here. They've given us everything that we would need and want. And if we need something, they'll get it for us. This is it's an impressive structure. And that's just the side that you're going to see here. Everything behind it is more day-to-day football wise and program wise. And they're still going to work on the FTF and, how about the Womble training facility, or the Womble football building, or however we want to phrase that. But some of that is still, being worked on. But man, it's impressive. You're right, Callan.
Yeah, you're going to have to start differentiating between which 40, 50, $100 million building we're talking about when we talk about the Womble. He's gone plural now, as far as some of those are concerned, which is a great way to be. And also another great idea. I want to give a double thumbs up, 5 gold stars to whoever decided we wanted to see the Double T scoreboard from Tahoka. So I like the new sight line as you're coming from anywhere in town, and now you see that bad boy popping up with that scarlet high over these West Texas plains. Can't wait to get in it for real in the fall. I think my wife thought I was joking whenever I was being so anal last year in our seat on the far southwest end of the stadium and saying, we're going to have to move. I can't see the Double T scoreboard from here. I can already tell you the sight line's not going to line up correctly. And she's like, are you serious? Yes, I'm serious. So what up to my new Section 108 riders joining the family this year so I can have a clear look at that beautiful Double T scoreboard and hopefully more bulbs lit up on the home side than the visitor side. But we'll take her any way she comes. I know how to deal with both results. Let's get back to football, and let's get back to Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire. These are the conversations of spring camp, I think, in the trenches, both sides of the ball. That's what's leading the way for me. First, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster, and for free. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else, and it does it all while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within only 24 hours. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today. Terms and conditions apply. And I was a little bit surprised maybe to hear how he's talking about depth shaping up on the defensive side of things versus the way things are shaping up on the offensive side of things. I know it's not the same conversation like, boy, we've got to have offensive line depth. You need some, but you're also looking for 5 really good guys to be there week after week after week after week. Let's start on that side, obviously, with the new position coach and offensive line coach, Clay McGuire, and Joey McGuire giving us the latest as far as those first 5 out as we hit the final week of spring camp. Here's Coach McGuire.
The starting group today was Sterling at left tackle, Caleb at left guard, Sheridan at center, Carter at right guard, and Ty Buchanan at right tackle. And that was the first time the ones came out. The second time the one came out, Vinny went to left guard, Caleb went to right guard. Sheridan stayed at center, and then the 2 tackles were the same. So I think Caleb allows us to be able to have depth. We are creating depth, but he really, I really want him to play inside because I feel good about Sterling and Ty at tackle, and I think it's going to help us and it's going to help him.
I don't know if y'all are noticing out there or not, but it kind of seems to sound like maybe 3 of the 5 are becoming solidified. Ty Buchanan was called cemented at the right tackle spot a couple of weeks ago. Sterling Porcher has been mentioned over and over and over as LT number 1. And Sheridan Wilson at the center spot continues to get mentioned. I don't think that one's quite cemented necessarily, Chris, but some tackles and a center have seemed to be a little bit more consistent through spring camp. And then you've got these guards trying to figure some things out there between Carter or Scurry or obviously Caleb Rogers.
I think it's pretty interesting that I think we can say a few things here, even though there's still a week to go and a few things could get tweaked or whatever. But you're now having multiple conversations now with Clay McGuire, now Joey and all that, where this is kind of spanned over the last week to 10 days at the tail end of spring here. I get the sense that Sheridan Wilson may go into summer as kind of the first team center.
Kind of sounds like it, right?
Yeah, it really does. And that's Clay kind of saying that. It's or Clay kind of indicated, man, he's maybe been the most impressive guy that I've seen here. When I showed up, I thought he was like a 3rd or 4th year veteran. That's kind of how I viewed him based on the way he played and acted and all that stuff. That's what Clay was saying about Sheridan Wilson. And then, here Joey talks about, first team O-line. Here's what it looked like. And so I think what you have is I think they feel good about 6 players. And then after that, I think there's, you try to figure out the rest. I just don't know if a game were to start tomorrow, who would be the one guy that would not be a part of the starting 5 because it sounds like between – if you're telling me that Sheridan Wilson is the starting center, which it may or may not end up being accurate, but it sure – again, I think the right way to phrase it is it sure sounds like he may go that way into summer. Okay, so all bets are off after that, but that's the way we would term it. And then I think Davion Carter. You hear the way Joey talked about Davion Carter, the Memphis transfer, who's also I think taking some center snaps as well. I think he's pretty much solidified as well. And so then it's like, is it come down to Caleb or Vinny Scurry as the other starter on the interior? If you're talking about Ty Buchanan being cemented, to use Joey's term, at right tackle, And then Sterling Porcher, who was a transfer that's really only played left tackle in his career. It's like Caleb Rogers is almost like would be the depth piece at tackle too. It can play either spot. And again, you'll get your 7th, 8th, 9th kind of options at some point here. Dalton Merriman, just was coming back from an injury. Caleb Rodkey is somebody. Maurice Rodriguez, we know, is a possibility and all that stuff. But yeah, it seems to be like they're kind of narrowing in here based on the way that they talk. So it's kind of interesting because I was not expecting. And kudos to him, man. And this is a good thing. I hope nobody think is the takeaway here is like, oh man, this is not good. The Sheridan Wilson emergence here is really a great thing. He's homegrown. He is somebody that has pushed his way through and is earning it. And that's all Joey said. It's all he's really ever practiced is center. And, Caleb has taken a few reps there. Davian Carter has, but it's really all that Sheridan Wilson has practiced is at center. And so if anything, you'll have a good starter in a big time depth piece at center, depending on how that plays out. So, but yeah, he was not a name I was necessarily expecting.
Yeah, and I hear them reference him often as Sherry. So you take your own chances calling a 6'5", 300-pound man Sherry, but they seem to feel comfortable about it. But yeah, that actually would, I think, be a pleasant surprise.
Who's the most famous? I was trying to think of Sherry's in lore and in history. I do remember when Miss Elizabeth got kicked off to the side, Macho Man Randy Savage back in the 80s had sensational Sherry. And she would hit people with a folding chair. She'd come off the top rope. She was a little bit different than Miss Elizabeth. But if you don't know who I'm talking about, Google it.
Scary Sherry.
There you go. She would transition into that too. Very good in her WCW days. So there you go. That's if Sheridan Wilson can channel sensational Sherry or scary Sherry, and somehow I think we're cooking.
Okay.
With gas, man.
Yeah, let's go scary Sherry for Sheridan Wilson. And I'm going to have to say I will defer to my sweetheart of an Aunt Sherry, as the most historic in my life. So shout out to Aunt Sherry and even Uncle Bill. All right. Let's flip to the other side of the line of scrimmage really quickly, Chris. I want to hear from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire once again. And I got to tell you, there's, I guess, some opportunity they're finding here on the heels of the departure of Jalen Hutchings and Tony Bradford that I didn't necessarily anticipate, or maybe my expectations weren't framing the situation correctly, because you have two cornerstone pieces like that. They walk away, and their walking away is not a good thing, but the changing of the dynamics as far as some depth is concerned sounds like it could be a very good thing for the Red Raiders up front defensively. I'll allow Joey McGuire to explain. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. And you can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs, slam dunks, and all in between, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So what's the holdup? Get in the mix now on all the action by visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. As far as some depth is concerned, sounds like it could be a very good thing for the Red Raiders up front defensively. I'll allow Joey McGuire to explain.
When we first got here, if you go back to year one, Jalen and Tony had to play outrageous snaps. I mean, like almost 700 apiece. And if you look at anybody else in the nation, the highest was a team that played in the national championship, and that kid played like 500 snaps. So our guys are playing 200 snaps more, and we didn't want that. It was just the nature of the beast of our depth. Last year we were able to play 4. We start tomorrow. It's going to be Quincy and Duda starting. And then you start rotating in, like you go Quincy and Duda, and then you go Trey McAlpin, who's had a great spring, really came on at the end of the year, D.B. Carroll, James Hanson. But like Jaden Cofield made a play today that was really eye-opening. He's doing really good. Rigsby, The thing I like about Rigsby right now, I think he'll keep progressing the stronger he gets as far as stopping the run, but he's really explosive in the pass rush. So early in the year, it might be that he's a third down guy. But I think I just went to 7. I really think that we have 7 guys.
Chris, I know as he mentions there, Quincy Ledet, Duda Banks kind of leading the way as the first 2 names on the list. But I don't know, that's something that maybe can become kind of lost on me just as a fan, in that you think about those frontline guys and they're on the field all the time. That's awesome. Well, actually, when you're talking about these big boys, some depth would be awesome, and not having to play these massive amounts of snaps. So we like everything. We're happy with everything, obviously, in the spring. We'll see how it manifests when we get to the fall, but kind of excited about maybe the possibilities of a true rotation there.
Here's the best way to phrase it, and this is really going to apply, I think, with most of the positions on the defense. I think Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez certainly have kind of got some name recognition, but everywhere else on the defense, and the defensive line is no different. And maybe the best example of it is that, and I need to be careful with what it's like. I think you have quantity over quality. And what I mean by that is there's not an all-conference guy in the group here, I don't think, or a draft pick necessarily in the deal, but you also are as good from 6 and 7 as you are at 1 or 2, if you follow me. Yeah, and some guys may be better or more experienced than others and all that stuff, but there is no one player that if they go down, you're just screwed. There is a lot of depth and quality depth to where, and old depth. I mean, you look at DeBraylon Carroll and like James Hansen that are coming in here for their senior year from Rice and Nevada that I think will only enhance, and they're not really even slated to start based on what you hear Joey saying there about Duda Banks and Quincy Ledet. So yeah, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. It's like you don't you need to be careful about like quality. It's just like I think everybody knew how good Tony and Jalen were, right? And it kind of a bit of a drop off there. Well, you don't really have that now, but your third, fourth, fifth, sixth guys are pretty darn close to as good as your first and second guys, which is a good thing. I would always love an all-conference guy and a draft pick at every position, but having the totality of the group be very, very strong. And again, now you're not, but this is kind of how it's going to be. Joe even referred to the defense as kind of like the Miami Dolphins when they were called the no-name defense, and they were so good and nobody really knew a lot about any of the guys that were playing for the Dolphins at the time. And he's like, you just don't know their names now, but you will, kind of deal. And that's kind of the way it is with the defensive tackle position and several other spots on the defense.
Kind of exciting to consider, thinking about just having to fill so many shoes on that side of the football. And so you're like, all right, well, who is the guy or who are the 2 guys that are going to do it? But obviously a much larger project at hand and a bigger group that maybe you're going to be rolling in with. You feel like you can really count on when you get into the fall. Plenty more coming up this week as we wrap up spring camp, heading down to Midland, of course, on Saturday. Before we get out of here today, Chris, we must salute the man who is $2 million richer, and that is Ludvig Aberg. I heard himself call himself Aberg over the weekend, so I'm going back to Aberg. You never know which way we're going when we're pronouncing names from across the pond. But what a finish for him as he winds up second at the Masters in his first appearance at the Masters. Seemed to be having a great time all the while. The attitude pretty much remained even-keeled, I think, making good shots or some adversity strikes, like when somebody slaps a power bar out of your hand between holes. I'm sure that was some filthy Longhorn in the crowd. What was that, Scheffler's like brother-in-law or something, smacking the power bar out of Ludwig's hand? Not going to get too worked up over that, but plenty worked up over a great success for Mr. Aberg, man. That was just awesome to see.
Yeah, man, and if you play well there, it just is different than anywhere else, man. It just is. I think people view you differently. That tournament it's just different. And I thought he, look, you're outright second place to the world number 1. There's no shame in that. Scheffler is 3 or 4 years older and just in a different level than anybody right now. But what this Texas Tech alum went through over the weekend, and the pressure and the scene, all of that, I think, and he handles it with, like, you just don't ever see he's just like, he's smiling a little bit, but he just he does stress me out with how quickly he gets up. They talked about it on the broadcast, but like, once a decision is made on kind of what shot he's going to hit, what club he's going to hit, he gets up there and it's like, that ball's gone. And it, like,
love it. Yeah.
I mean, it's like it just stresses me out, because I'm like, man, just take a little bit more time. Just see it, practice swing. He just gets up there and grip it and rip it, man. I mean, it is like,
that's the last thing we need, Chris, is golfers taking more time.
I know.
Get up there and swing the club.
It's almost like, it almost is like just all happening too fast. It's like,
he's the anti-Sergio,
Yeah, that had there's no doubt. There's no doubt. But, man,
15-minute takeoff.
This is just a start for this kid, man. It's all in front of him. He seems so humble and appreciative. And, one was part of the European Ryder Cup team last year, second in the Masters. All this is coming at him very, very fast. But he just seems so – and I love that he continues to mention Texas Tech. And, it even talked about in the press conference before the tournament that they, his college team had got to come out and play Augusta National before or right when COVID hit. So – this week wasn't the first time that he'd seen it, and I think he was there a couple of weeks ago as well. But still, Texas Tech is a big part of what he's got going, and it's a lot of fun to see, because, I mean, he's just getting started, man. I mean, the way these people that talk about this sport full-time and year-round talk about him, I mean, look out. Like, he's gonna continue to be at the top of these leaderboards and win some of these tournaments for sure.
Yeah, I did notice a couple of times, as soon as they get the camera on the guy, there's a swing happening, and I'm thinking, wait, was that the swing? Like, he hit the ball on that swing? Of course, you're talking to a guy who has not taken a practice swing in probably 15 to 20 years. If you're going to play terrible, at least play fast. And that's all I can promise if I'm in any golf group, is you're not going to see a practice swing out of me. I'm getting up there and letting her rip. God only knows where it's going to land, but it's going to be over very, very quickly. Makes me think of my wife. Chris, I feel like we've all got that guy in our group, right, who stinks to high heaven, and you get up there and he's there with like the protractor and the telescope, and he's measuring everything out just to duff it maybe 5 feet off the tee box or whatever.
Like Tin Cup.
Don't be that guy. Yeah. Man, congratulations to Ludvig. Just awesome stuff. I can't wait to see what he's got coming up next. And the same applies to you, Chris. Can't wait for tomorrow's episode. Appreciate your time and insight. As always, man, we'll see you for the next round.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I hope everybody has a good start to their week, and keep an eye on the old portal window opening up mañana.
That's right.
So I think some are expecting fireworks, not necessarily here in Lubbock, but just the sport in general. So what that means, is that being overstated? Heck if I know, but we'll all talk about it starting tomorrow.
That's right. We appreciate you guys being out there, and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.